Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by Circus Sports and Casino. Here we're with Jake Letarski, Joe Bartel. The new football routine, I guess Monday through Friday now, is set and ready to go. We're kicking things off here, discussing draft plan, draft strategy, more or less, with the updated RotoWire abilities of sorts here, and everything going on that we've had over the past couple of days since we're not calling it a relaunch, but like it feels like a launch of things. Correct, Jake? Right?
Yeah, it's essentially that. I mean, it's a rebrand, it's a relaunch. We're changing the logo and the site layout. I'm sure many of you have seen. We have it up here for you. We're going to go through some of these steps, but we really invested into this football season in particular to get the best drafting tool and mock draft simulator available. And the new logo and color scheme and site layout are all just reflective of our reinvestment in the site here. So at time of recording this, it's only been live for a couple days. So hopefully we're going to be able to go through and show you guys how to use these tools and put these tools to work.
Well, this is probably the earliest that you and I have kicked off doing the Monday show. And if you've been a longtime listener, you actually know that Jake and I typically do the Tuesday Waiver Wire podcast throughout the season. That's now being changed to Mondays to better reflect everything I feel like that's been happening with the movement of free agent Waiver Wire podcasts, things like that. So Jake and I, throughout the calendar season, really probably up until end of January, early February, are going to be on every Monday on this network, wherever you're listening to your podcast, the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Jake and Joe getting you set for the waiver wires during the season. It's not during the season, though, Jake. And because of that, I think a lot of this is going to be strategy talk, kind of planning. And we like to do tutorial things of sorts. We've done auction draft strategy. We will probably do that again this year. There's a number of different, I think, hey, you're dipping your toes back into the fantasy football world. That's what Jake and Joe typically do on this podcast network. So I thought it'd be a good idea to go ahead and get things started with one of the biggest changes that we've had in RotoWire in some time, which is really multifaceted, both the mock draft ability and the draft assistant tools, which are available in the case of the mock draft for non-subscribers, but everything else, and I think from a dedicated perspective, available to all people who are subscribing to RotoWire. Before we dive into that, though, I want to get a word from our sponsors real quick. Circa Sports, Circa Million and Circa Survivor are back with a massive $21 million in guaranteed prizes. Circa Million, you can pick 5 games against the spread each week, 18 weeks of the season, 126 ways to win $1 million for the winner and $6 million guaranteed. And then Circa Survivor, 1 pick a week, no point spread. The longest to last wins it all, at least $15 million guaranteed with the Circa Survivor. You can enter and bet, but play from anywhere. $21 million guaranteed across the 2 competitions. Visit circusports.com for more details. All right, Jake, I wanted to dive right into what I think is the more applicable feature for a lot of people, or at least what I've been hearing from a lot of friends and people in the industry, is the mock draft portion of the site. So this is available, and I want to correct me if I'm wrong on any of this stuff, but it's available on both the site and the app, which if you have not downloaded already, please make sure you download the RotoWire Sports app too. So we have it displayed on the video side on the website, but I think it's also important to note that this is basically one for one available on the app as well too.
Yeah, the apps are all included with the RotoWire subscription. And for the first time in, almost a decade, we have an app in the Google Play market that is equivalent to the Apple version. So you can check out the apps too. It's easier for our purposes here to do the desktop version and get a big view of everything that's going on here. It's also available on mobile. Of course, we know that's popular, and we've heard about from all the Android users over the years, and have finally been able to break into that market here. But yeah, so we're on the homepage of the website here. This is just rotowire.com. You want to make sure you're logged in here. We've got a banner here for the mock draft simulator. You can start there. But if you're on any part of the site, we're just going to go into the navigation here. Fantasy, NFL. You can see all of our stuff here, but then it's tools.
Lots and lots.
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on. And then a mock draft simulator and the draft assistant. The draft assistant is more to follow along with your actual live draft as it's happening. And we're going to launch some league sync features here very shortly that'll be able to do that. Otherwise, it'll mark the picks off for you. Of course, you still have to stay in the draft room to make your picks. We can't make picks from the site just because, these sites want to keep you in their draft room and, have you exposed to their advertisers or whatnot. So they do make it challenging, but we have a lot of sync features on the way here. But for the purposes of this discussion today, we're going to focus on the mock draft simulator, which you mentioned. It's available without a subscription, actually. So you can
Big
download
thing.
the app,
Mhm.
go on the site. As long as you have an account, even if it's not a paid subscription, you can use the mock draft simulator to run mock drafts. The draft assistant tool, of course, you'll need a subscription for. So you can run mock drafts with this mock draft simulator here. But what you're going to notice very shortly when we start these mock drafts is that there's a very sophisticated draft plan feature, and we're going to get into our strategy discussion when we go through that and start to discuss how I personally like to set the options here and what options are available here. So if you want to do a mock draft with your specific draft plan involved, that does require a subscription, but you can run here, test it out, get a feel for it without any subscription to the website here.
Well,
And
I'm gonna cut you off because I want to make sure people are understanding. When you say
yeah,
the my specific draft strategy, you are talking about the tools that we're discussing in just a little bit, where you can tweak things as how you want the AI to draft. If your league is a friends and family league here in Wisconsin, where maybe you have 4 or 5 beers in before you even start the thing, maybe people are drafting quarterbacks a little bit too high because of said alcohol,
exactly.
or maybe
Yep.
this is a super sharp friends and family draft, and they follow along with what the experts do, which is fade the position entirely. You are
Yeah,
able to toggle
absolutely.
those features on the AI part of things with this mock draft.
Yeah, absolutely. That is more sophisticated than before, and I think today we're going to mostly focus on your draft plan and strategy here. But yes, it is more sophisticated in that sense here. So here are mock drafts. You can see I've already started a couple ones and have been playing with the tool. This is kind of the home base for the tool. I know many of you clamoring for dark mode. Guess what? We have it. So that is there as well. But I think just for the purposes of displaying the action, we're going to keep it in light mode here. So when you start a mock draft here, the first thing you need to do is customize your draft settings. These are the basic nuts and bolts of what we're looking at. What's the draft order? What are the roster settings, complete scoring settings, all of this kind of stuff. You can name a draft here. We'll just call it Jake and Joe's Pod. And then
For those
you can
listening while
select.
Jake's typing this out, this is
Yeah,
actually what I used to prepare for the Scott Fish Bowl. We had the live draft take place last Sunday. I actually implemented this stuff. I tested with the mock draft part of things. It was really
fantastic.
helpful, even though it wasn't quite how my league reacted. I would say, based off the total ADP I've seen across all the different Scott Fish Bowl drafts to date, the mock draft has actually been really good with those settings implemented in there too. So just one note as those start kicking off for everyone, July 7th, I believe, from a sleeper app draft perspective.
Yep. Okay. So again, just taking it from the top here, and I do realize for those listening in, the video component of this is a little better, but I'll try to talk out exactly what I'm doing here. So you can import leagues via My Leagues. We support all of the major platforms here, and basically what this does is it'll preload the settings that you have for that league. And if you already have one imported, you could pick. This is a RotoWire's Staff Dynasty League that we have on my fantasy league. But of course, Yahoo, ESPN, Sleeper, CBS, all the big ones, and even the pros at the NFFC, right?
Yeah, exactly. We had the NFFC, and obviously, I think Jim Coventry did his live draft for the NFFC yesterday, or I guess when this is being recorded, it's or being listened to, it's a little bit later of last week. But yeah, the NFFC football online championships are live right now. You can play against your fantasy football greats like Jim Coventry and other RotoWire experts on the NFFC. Also, this baseball season as well too. You have Jeff Erickson, Nick Whalen, myself, Jim Coventry, Mario Puig, John McKechnie. If you're listening to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Network, you are going to be having most of those experts have their very own NFFC online championship taking place from a football perspective. So sign up for your draft today at rotowire.com/high stakes. That's RotoWire, ROTO wire.com/high stakes for your chance, for your shot at $250,000.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of those NFFC leagues, or most of them, I think the default is third round reversal, which of course
Correct. Yes.
you can choose here. We're going to try to do the most default league today here. So 12 teams. What position do you want to draft out of, Joe?
Oh, this is opening up a whole can of worms. We're going to pick team 4. I'll explain why I like the 4th position if and when we kind of exceed through this mock draft. But that has been, I think, if I'm saying it's a KTC, get to kind of preferred selection, I think 4 is the right pick.
Yep, absolutely here. And then scoring settings, we offer standard half PPR custom. It just is a quick way to do this. But if you want, you can click on customize here and change all these things. So for example, you have to increase touchdown points if it's the NFFC. And then you can see here first downs, attempts, all these things, receiving yards. You can do, I believe Scott Fishbowl, which I'm going to do in a week, does
3 points per
bonuses.
3 points per tight end reception. Yeah, like I said, I
3
plugged
points
all
for
this
tight
stuff
end
in.
receptions. So like you already have your receptions, and then you would just enter the 2, 3, what have you here. But
Right.
we're gonna try to keep this pretty default for the most part. So we're just gonna leave those things alone for now here. One thing, you customize your roster settings here as well. I'll go to 3 wide receivers. I think that's the most common right now, though we try to stick to the default settings for the most popular platforms, which is why we keep it at 2. But I know a lot of us have been playing in 3 wide receiver leagues here. So anyway, all right, we're team 4. We got our roster and scoring settings here. 12 team league, snake draft. We'll continue. Now is where the fun starts. Again, your free users will be able to use our default draft plan, what we generally recommend. It kind of would be like if you used our Apper tools in the years past and just had our general rankings formula for those custom settings. That's essentially what the default draft plan is here. But we're all smarter than that. We know our listeners are smarter than that and want to get into some of the customization options we offer here. So the first thing it's going to assess, as you can see here, is your risk assessment. Think about how you handle risky players during the different stages of your draft. Do you want the safety of high floor players or the upside of high ceiling players? So it has early rounds, middle rounds, and late rounds. The default, of course, is going to be balanced, but you get the chance to pick. Do you want to play it safe in the early rounds, get the safest first round pick possible? Or do you want to aim for upside and go for that ceiling? So like playing it safe, I would think maybe your Jamar Chase types or your CeeDee Lamb, or if you're in the middle rounds, or like just really established receivers. Where when I think of aim for upside, it's more
Christian
like
McCaffrey is the answer for this question.
Exactly, Christian McCaffrey. I also think Ashton Genty too. The rookie, obviously huge upside. I wouldn't call him a play it safe first round pick necessarily. Some people, we can do whole shows on this. We can debate on the volume he's going to get. But I don't know. Just me personally, I'm going to have it suggest relatively safe players in the early rounds. I'll keep it balanced in the middle rounds. And then those late round flyers, the guys that are going to be on your bench anyway, I'm going to click aim for upside, right? Because you want to take those stabs and
100%. Yep.
Yeah, what you could do is you could just do the safest draft possible, take third place in your league and call it a day, or you could aim for upside in all options with a chance to really win or a chance to be dead last if you draft all upside players. So this is usually how I'm going to go in most of my draft plans right here. Play it safe in the early, balance in the middle rounds, aim for upside in the late rounds. And here we go. The next thing it's going to ask you is, are you comfortable reaching for a player you really like? Reaching for a player means that you take them well before they're generally expected to be drafted, and this is based on ADP. All these sets are working for your league type in the back end in general. One of the last things the mock draft simulator or the draft plan creator is going to ask you to do is to mark players that you really like. These are your targeted players. We'll go through a couple of those in a bit here. And then what you can do is between early, middle, and late rounds, you can say, get my guys or stick to ADP. So eventually what you'll see here is the program offers a list of their top recommended players here. We have, it will show you right front and center, this is who we recommend you take now, and this is why. And it's different from past years because in the past, you used to just enter your settings and you'd get a list. And it wasn't really dynamic. It didn't really account for positional. It does account for positional scarcity by default, but the top of the list isn't necessarily assessing other teams' needs and your team needs. It's just saying the best player available. So this list and our recommendations will be dynamic. They're going to adjust based on your team needs. If you're 10 rounds in and don't have a quarterback, those recommended players are going to show up near the top of the screen here. So generally for now, I'm going to say in the early rounds, stick to ADP, just based on recommendations. Obviously, if you really feel strongly and want to reach, the draft simulator is not going to stop you from doing that, but this just is affecting in the recommendations that come up. And then I'm going to say middle and late rounds, go ahead and get my guys. We'll be okay reaching a little bit for the guys that we're high on. to some degree here. So for now, I'm just going to stick to this plan right here, stick to ADP in the early rounds, get my guys in the middle and late rounds here. Now we're going to start getting into the fun part where it's building your draft plan. Which factors matter most to you when deciding who to draft? There's a list of factors below. And what it's going to ask is reorder the list below by dragging the most important factors to the top. We'll use your preferences to approve our in-draft suggestions here. What I have so far is this is kind of the default consistency on a game-to-game basis. Are you going to have players that are consistently scoring you 10 points, or are you going to have the maybe Tyreek Hill type players that'll disappear in one game and score you 35 points in another? That's going to that's basically what this offers here. There's a thing for overall strength of schedule. There's a node for injury risk. So guys like maybe Christian McCaffrey, anybody that has this uses many years of RotoWire injury data into the algorithm here to pick players that do have injury risk. And I know a lot of people have asked for this in the app before. If this is very important to you, if you want to make sure you have the healthiest team possible or not draft guys that are already injured, you can move this up to the top. It's a drag and drop system. Personally, I like to move injury risk towards the bottom of this draft, and because I don't want it to overvalue. I'm looking at this season's projection here, so I don't want it to overcompensate for injured players, because then guys like maybe Saquon or Christian McCaffrey is the example that we like. They get bumped down, and in reality, I want those players on my team. So I'll just read off the rest of these. I won't go too in depth here, but overall schedule strength, age. Sometimes people want players that skew younger, or of course, if you're doing a dynasty draft, you would probably move age right to the top. So it suggests some younger players. You can value last year's performance. I don't love that because players that miss time due to injury are unfairly labeled there. So I'm moving that one towards the bottom. I don't care about bye week conflicts too much. I always say future Jake problem, right? I'm going to sort that out when I get there. We have data on teams, run versus pass tendency. We have offensive line rankings. You want to draft guys with the best offensive line? You can add that up. Quarterback skill level. Generally, I want my players to be on an offense with a quality quarterback. So I'll go ahead and do that. Team offensive strength, I'll move that up. You can also see between overall schedule strength, it splits it off into playoff schedule strength and early season. Do you value getting a fast start so you can get into the playoffs and not worry about the unknown later on? Or do you think you're confidently going to be able to get in the playoffs and you want to have the best matchups then? So that's kind of what some of these factors are discussing now. So this is roughly what I'll use, but I will play with the tool a little bit to be able to you just see how these factors affect the rankings and the recommendations here when I get to the mock draft stage here. So I'm going to continue along here. This here is building your draft plan where you add players you like. I mentioned before in the setup stage where where it asks you if you want to reach for your guys. Right here is where you put your guys. So, I mean, obviously these guys here are all first round picks, but like just taking a couple examples, I think Jaden Reed is a little overvalued this year. I know he's a little bit frustrating for some fantasy managers, but he's a guy that I think is a little underdrafted, and I would go ahead of ADP to go get him. Joe, how many of your guys have you settled on here yet? I know we lost you for a bit, but I kept trucking. So let's go. How many of your guys? You want to throw us some examples?
Yeah, I think a really good player that I'm probably targeting a decent amount would be somebody that drafted for the Dynasty League, Quinshon Judkins. I think his current ADP is a little bit wrong, and he could probably go that way for a few of the different rookies. So Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Johnson's probably another one of my guys, and I think about a 6th, 7th round turn. It might not fit our it's Caleb with a K, Jake. Come on, you got to catch up on all this stuff. Because Caleb Johnson, that's a Big Ten guy. You should have been all on that one. Caleb with a K.
Yeah, I should have been all on that. I have some activities that go on Saturdays, but
I had a good question for you. How often, like if I added like just say 30 of my guys, how does it end up populating that? Or what's like the best spot to really capitalize on this? More 3 or 4 people?
So I couldn't tell you the exact formula it uses, but basically what will happen is when it's your turn to pick and you get recommendations set for you, It'll be a mix of some of your guys and some of the ADP guys, and we'll see this at the very end, but it'll show you exactly. It'll list 5, 6, sometimes 10 bullet points as to why this player is being recommended. We definitely want to get into the why this year. So I'm just going to mark a few more of these guys off here. Bounce back for Laporta, maybe.
Throw Pacheco in there. Pacheco's another good one of my guys. Isaiah Pacheco.
Oh, Pacheco, yeah, I think he's being crazy underdrafted. By the way, here I'm not worried about the competition there whatsoever, and he was running great before the injury last year. But anyway, all right, we're gonna call it a day and do done. So here's the summary. Here are all the players that we want to get bumped up. Just so there's a feature working on the back end, and it'll show you this that says there's only a 15% chance this player will be available at your next pick. And that factors into the recommendations as well. So if once that number gets below a certain point, some of these guys will get bumped up the list here. And we'll see that a little bit when we get to the execution. All right, Joe, here's a fun one. Players to avoid. Who are we not touching whatsoever in drafts this season? Do we want to not touch? I actually like Herbert, but do we want to not touch quarterbacks that don't run so much? Maybe.
That's fine. Can I give you one that I'm at least not going anywhere near? Travis Hunter this year.
Travis Hunter, perfect. Yes, I think he's way too hyped and gonna make me. Oh, here we go. Travis Hunter, right there. Here, Jonnu Smith. Do you like his new situation?
I ended up taking in the FSGA expert draft, but it ended up being tight end 18 or 19. I would say conventionally with his ADP, he's an ignore. And I'll add you one more among tight ends. I'm also not taking Brock Bowers. That might affect the higher ADP.
Interesting.
But I'm not going anywhere near Brock Bowers in his it feels like 16 to 20 range right now.
Yeah, I don't have any shares at this current stage of 4 or 5 drafts in, but certainly.
I apologize. I have one more. As you're scrolling through the list, if you're watching on this live, you're able to see kind of all the different players. You can type in. Marvin Harrison is going to be an unconventional do not draft, but I'm not going anywhere near Marvin Harrison's ADP this year.
Yeah, I didn't love the consistency factor, and when I was going through all the factors, I mentioned kind of the consistency factor, and that would be another one that I moved up the list a bit, so he would have been pushed down a bit in general here. So all right, we've got a handful of players to avoid here. Let's go ahead and continue. Here's the fun one. Now we add a draft strategy, and these are specific parameters that you set to guide your recommendations here in general. Of course, all of that is that. But are you interested in any of these draft strategies? Select one or more below, and we'll customize our in-draft suggestions to match. So this wait on a position is a really good one. We almost do a whole show on waiting on quarterbacks, or why we want to save quarterbacks cheap. So what you can do is say, do not draft a quarterback until round 8 and add this strategy. And then you know what else you can do? Do not recommend drafting a defense until the last round. I'm streaming defenses, and I guess in that same thing, do not draft a kicker until the 15th round. So, it won't even bother you with recommendations until it's time. Another thing that you can do, which is a popular request, it's not something I usually do because I want to let the draft come to me. It's a strategy called script the early rounds. Decide which positions you want to target in the first 3 rounds and go from there. So if you want to go RB, it'll only recommend RBs in the first 2 rounds. I don't like being tied to that because I think you have to let the draft come to you. There's always some surprises in the draft, and maybe a player you didn't think would be available is. So I prefer to feel that out. So I'm not going to add that draft strategy, but that is an option here if you want to go wide receiver, running back, wide receiver, if you want to do the fade running backs. So that's just another option here because, again, these draft plans, the whole goal is to make it as customizable as possible for your draft tendencies and needs here. So we already edited the draft strategies. Perfect Draft Plan C is what we're going to call this masterpiece, again, which you can go back and edit later if you like. So I'm going to go ahead and click Finish Your Draft Plan. And then it's going to load for a second. And bada bing, bada boom, because this is the mock draft simulator, we've got the first 3 picks already off the board. So the mock draft had Jamar Chase, Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, and now here we are at pick number 4.
I think it's a good time to jump in. Yeah. I mean, we'll get into the number 4 spot. Oftentimes I get asked as an expert, like, all right, if you could have one spot, what's the range? And I'll kind of cop out. I'll be like, well, I'd like pick 2, 3, or 4, like 9, 10, 11, 12, that kind of spot. 4 is an interesting spot. But I think for this example, I want to talk a little bit more about Fantrax too, because before we get into it, I mean, Fantrax has a lot of different unique draft features as well. So is there something you wish your fantasy league had, or features that are missing from your current leagues? Bonus scoring, custom schedule or playoffs, deeper team settings? We'll look no further because we have you covered here with our friends at Fantrax. Fantrax is the most customizable fantasy platform in the industry, offering the greatest fantasy experience for your dynasty, keeper, redraft, and best ball leagues. Great news is they're partnered with the most customizable mock draft system in the league in RotoWire too. So Fantrax, well, RotoWire does too, but Fantrax even offers college fantasy football leagues as well. You can create or join a fantasy commissioner league, invite your friends, dominate your draft this season, hopefully with the RotoWire app as well too. Fantrax is the top dynasty fantasy football platform in the industry. And Fantrax is running a special promotion you don't want to miss. Sign up for free at fantrax.com/RotoWire today to enter for your chance to win a signed Jamar Chase jersey. Of course, he went off the board just in our mock draft, but you could get his jersey if you enter with fantrax.com/RotoWire. Simply create a new league or bring over your existing league for your chance to win. Go to fantrax.com/RotoWire and sign up today. Fantrax, the home of fantasy sports, and a signed Jamar Chase jersey as well too. So at pick number 4, the reason I want to take this spot would be to get one of the receivers, Jake. So whether it be Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, sometimes you'll see Jamar Chase fall to that number 4 spot. I want a receiver because, more importantly, I think coming back round 2 more likely will be a running back. So we'll see this play out on the mock draft, maybe if I'm correct or not, but I think I'll leave it up to you. Either Justin Jefferson or CeeDee Lamb will be one of my pick at 4.
Yeah, I'm going to go Justin Jefferson here. But before I make that pick, I just do want to highlight, these are the suggested for you recommendations. And it says right here, notes from your assistant GM, which is us, I guess, in a way. And it takes notes from your draft position, matches the top team need, number 1 receiver left on the board, last wide receiver in his tier. We have a tier system working on the back end that figures that out for you. High consistency, peak age range for a wide receiver, easy playoff schedule, good offensive line, keeping the quarterback up. So all of these type of things factor into play. You can also go down here and look at the best available by each position. You can do your targets here by their chance to be drafted soon. Right now, because it's the first round, obviously these guys aren't going anywhere. And then also it says likely to be gone before your next pick. Players who have a 50% chance or greater to be drafted. And then it has highest upside players by position, safest players by position, and a section for rookies too. So this is what we have so far, and I want to go through some of these things on the side as well. Mainly cheat sheet. This is just the general listing of players overall, and of course by position, and of course it has bye weeks there as well. This is just.
All right. Well, question for you is I'm seeing this used. I know I'm going to have some very old family members that will ask, can this be printed in case of the cheat sheets? I would imagine not from this part, but you can print them from the RotoWire site. But as you're drafting, is there a line, a strike through that will happen on some of these players online?
Yeah, well, they just disappear, right? So 1, Perfect. 2, and 3 are already gone from the list here. You won't see Chase, Bijan, or Saquon on there. So they just disappear. You can show drafted right here. If this is what you're looking for, to have the line here. And then as far as printing, I know we get these comments every year about printing. You cannot print directly from here, but there are other pages on the site. If you go to fantasy featured rankings and head over here, you can customize your fantasy. Uses the same formula, not your draft plan, but uses the same basic formula. And you can, see these players ranked, and then you can export to Excel or CSV to go ahead and print those rankings. So good, great question, Joe. Just wanted to get a note on that as well here. So, as we're going along here, rosters, this will show everybody's roster as it currently is. Insights is interesting. This shows what position everyone has drafted so far. So you can, double check to see if, the person that's coming up has their quarterback.
I'll jump in again because I have another question for you too. I would assume the insights and roster part something that would be there for the draft assistant as well.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. Okay. The draft assistant is going to look almost exactly like this. Except
Perfect.
This is specifically for mock drafting. The draft assistant is to run your actual draft here. So you can see all that. A lot of people, I know how popular you want a draft board. We have that here for you here. And then this is your queue. If you specifically want to queue up your own players, like some people like to do in their league's draft room, that's available too. And then of course you can just search by any player if you're trying to do research on the fly and go for it here. So anyway, you like receivers here? Let's go ahead and hit the draft position. And then here we go. Bang, bang, bang.
Look how quick it's ripping that off. That's perfect.
Exactly. So it's way faster than any tool that we've offered before here. So now let's take another look at these, like the cheat sheet, for example. That's all updated here. Now rosters, everyone's rosters. You can see their pick. Insights, you can see, well, Team 7 drafted 2 wide receivers. Most teams drafted 1 of each. One team has a tight end so far.
Bowers,
you can see the full draft board, how this looks in action here. But back over to you here. We're coming up on time, but we can do a couple more rounds just to show this.
I mean, Jake, this is exactly why I wanted the number 4 pick. If this board were to lay out exactly like this, you take a receiver early. This would have happened at pick 3 as well too, and then you're going to be left with, I think, a really, really good tier of running backs. Now, Josh Jacobs was just taking the pick before in this mock draft, but Jonathan Taylor, Bucky Irving, Kyren Williams, all right there available. I want that group of running backs desperately when I come back. I don't want to take JSN. Exactly. I don't want to take Marvin Harrison. I don't take Bowers or Trey McBride. Give me this foursome, including Josh Jacobs of running back. So I think because it's a mock, Jake, let's go ahead and draft our boy, the Madison guy, Jonathan Taylor.
Yep, for sure. And I also just want to note that in this suggested for you section, it knows we already picked a receiver. So it's throwing out top running backs and of course a tight end, because we don't have that yet. And receivers are a little bit back on the list here, just because it's dynamically adjusting for your team needs. But yes, I agree. Let's go ahead and take our Madison guy, Jonathan Taylor, and then look at and now we're right back here. So now we have I'll go to this. Like now we already have a receiver and a running back. These teams go in order, but your team's going to be front and center in this situation here. On the board. What are we thinking for the 3rd pick?
So I'm really curious because we had listed Marvin Harrison as a player we don't want to draft, typically, at least in your best ball leagues. And I think in the NFFC, he's also around this category, but I don't see him at all in the suggested for you. And I don't see him drafted. So where does he end up going? Like if I did have a change of heart, I'm like, you know what, fine, I'm going to get 1 share of Marvin Harrison. Is that something that you would see if you clicked on the cheat sheet itself? Or is the temptation removed?
So that's where it's going to be a situation where, you'd want to look at the cheat sheet here that shows, our default ranking. So you can find him here, but what's most likely going to happen in that situation, Joe, is he won't end up in your recommendations because you specifically told him not to, and somebody else will draft him before it gets bad enough that he shows up in your recommendations. That's the most likely scenario. I like here. But if for whatever reason, I guess that's an interesting thought experiment. If we got to round 6 and he's still there, would it then upgrade it? Would these other factors like your top team needs, number 1 receiver on the board, last in his tier, good quarterback, debatable, had a good year last year, that kind of thing, age, younger player, then some of these factors might start to push him up. But, again, we try to keep these as realistic as possible. So he's not going to the computer will take him first here. All right. So
to answer your question, Kyren Williams would be the guy I'd be ecstatic to come back to me at 3-4 in this example. So this is about a perfect mock as I could have, getting both the 2 running backs and then kind of attacking the receiver position after that.
Yep. All right. So let's let it go here. It looks like Terry McLaurin fell a little bit in this mocks. The AI does go on, ADP largely, but there is a bit of variance set in. So you can basically do the same mock from the same position and not end up with the same results every time. But okay, here we are here. It's not pushing our queue of recommended players up just yet. Actually, George Pickens is one guy I think I marked as I liked, and maybe it's pushing him up a little bit more than we would otherwise. Also, again, showing best available by position.
There we go. Targets, I was looking at the year targets. Yep.
This is the great feature because now this is starting to come into play. You can look. If I don't draft Sam Laporta right now, he has a 34% draft chance to be drafted before our next pick. And these other guys are a little bit more stretches. We'll see that in a second. And then, of course, this likely gone before your next pick. Now this is coming into play as well. If you had any thoughts of Jalen Hurts, you better get him now because because he'll be gone. However, remember we did set this to not take quarterbacks until late, just for example purposes. So you won't forget about these guys and these possible values, as long as you're scanning this when you're on the clock here. It's just not going to recommend here. So is somebody that you like here? Do you see something you like, or do you want to go to the cheat sheet maybe and pick somebody else to go
so
ahead and draft?
I'll give you two options, Jake, 'cause I'm very curious. At this point, if Jalen Hurts were to last the back end of the fourth round, this would be a tremendous value. Now, I understand that we have listed that we don't want quarterbacks, but to have Jalen Hurts be here at this spot, it might be one of those, if I were drafting today and be like, all right, I got to just go ahead and do it. So I'll be curious. Would you rather do that? Would you rather do that for this teaching example, or a guy that I like a lot, DJ Moore, who I think would conventionally be around this spot?
Yeah, I think I have to agree with you. I look by position. You can look at these. They show this there for a reason. I look by position and be like, man, you know what? I think it's Jalen Hurts time right now, and I'm going to go ahead and make that pick here and let the mock run, and we'll see if. I forgot that it's a quick turnaround. Looks like we can still get DJ Moore.
DJ Moore, and it's great because I would have rather had DK Metcalf or DJ Moore. DK Metcalf in this mock was taken right before. I don't think that's conventionally what happens, but DJ Moore at this point is a really, really good value, I think. Now, the system isn't showing that, and I think it's very curious. There's a number of reasons why. This would be why the experts might disagree with the computer sometimes, because the upside is a little bit more limited relative to some other players. But I think this is also seeing George Pickens now as a guy we wanted to target getting pushed up a little bit, because the odds of him coming back are unlikely.
Yep, and you can see exactly what those odds are. 66% chance to be drafted before the next round if you don't take him. Same thing, Pacheco and Judkins are getting. Are we going to roll the dice? Are one of these guys going to be available? I think let's roll the dice and see what happens here. I'll go ahead and jump on DJ Moore, and then we'll roll from there. Of course, yep.
As it's simming through, we do see Travis Hunter go off there at that point.
There we go. Judkins is off the board, but
we still, and George Pickens ended up going off the board too. Yep.
But fortunately, Pacheco, one of our targets, and this is a good view too here in this player thing with the panel that comes out. Your notes from your assistant GM, the latest news on RotoWire. You can see his projections, exactly what we have compared to the last few years. You can read his whole outlook on the website, so you can do your research as you go within this mock draft tool. You're not sitting and doing mock drafts. It's perfect because you can learn about a player and what we think of them going in. You can see their spot on the depth chart, and of course their schedule, longer bar, more favorable matchup here. And of course you can just go ahead and draft from this window too and watch the computer run. Now things are getting interesting. I know we don't have a tight end yet, but right now it looks like the computer's telling us that perhaps it's better to load up on these higher value players. And of course, as we mentioned, Jaden Reed is getting pushed up. Caleb Johnson is getting into the mix here. I want to just review our roster here. We got Hurts, Taylor, Kyron Williams, Justin Jefferson, DJ Moore, and Pacheco in the flex spot here. So what I think I'd do at this point is I'd check tight ends just to see. Number one tight end on the board is Mark Andrews, and he has an 80% chance of being drafted before the next pick. Now, do we want to grab Mark Andrews here, or are we comfortable waiting on some of these later guys? And I guess this is where we're getting into the player analysis discussion and a little bit less, in the demonstration here. But I just wanted to show you, if you're worried, like, man, I don't have a tight end, what does it say about the tight ends that are out there? Here you do your research, side-by-side comparison, even if they're not necessarily being recommended. Because again, we set this to be a 3 wide receiver league.
Correct.
And we already have 3 running backs. So those are naturally getting pushed down because we can't start 4 running backs. And it's recommending filling out the receiver situation. Warren, that just might be an ADP thing. Caleb Johnson, of course, that was one of the targets that we set here. But that's a pretty good summary here of what this tool does, what it's capable of, and how it can help you go ahead and make the best draft plan possible and make you as prepared as possible. I know it's only early July here. Hope everyone listening had a great 4th of July weekend. But, it's never too early. This is a great way to kill time, procrastinate, doing something else, or really just get down and dirty and start preparing, learning the player pool, who moved, and get comfortable with the tool before it's time to get going for real in your draft.
And I think a question I imagine people will ask, and I'm asking myself kind of right now, I think I would know the answer. The ADP that you'll have here post July 4th weekend is going to be dynamic and changing early August, mid August. So where is that the rankings from RotoWire and the experts that do that, or is it kind of taking into account drafts that are now occurring on Sleeper and ESPN and Yahoo and the other places as to how that ADP of these players is changing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, our best what we have here, we have an ADP feature on RotoWire. It's listed under Best Ball ADP, which isn't some of them are best ball leagues, but it's a tool that updates all of our ADPs in real time. And I wish it would load for me right now. But it's a tool that updates all of our different ADP sources in real time, shows arrows and stuff like that. So we're pulling from all of our sources very regularly and making sure you have the most up-to-date information here. And of course, if somebody were to get injured, we have that all under control on the back end too. We mark them as out for the season, and they won't show up in recommendations here. There's a lot of data on this page here, so that's probably what's taking a second here. But basically, you can pick PPR standard, half PPR. This explains what the arrows do, and you can also show it relative to your leagues that you've had set up here.
Oh, okay.
But of course, it's having a little stage fright here. But NFFC, Sleeper, ESPN, Fantrax, it has all of these ADPs that are taken into account. And of course, we're actually considering displaying some ADP stuff more prominently within this tool here. I am not quite sure what the verdict on that is yet. But on the back end, it's using the ADP that's most appropriate for your league.
Well, it's a perfect lead into my last question before we end the show. What are some new features or expectations that users should be having really come beginning of August, end of August, certainly? And I would imagine for more sports to come, but right now sticking to football, is there anything new that you guys are going to be adding before really fantasy draft season kicks off?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the ADP enhancements is one of them. You noticed at the beginning that we don't do auctions quite yet. Auctions are coming on the way here. Not mock auctions, but for the draft assistant. I mean, that they're coming
Good point.
to be able to follow along with your auction drafts. I know we like doing auction drafts, and a lot of our audience does as well. So we definitely didn't forget about you guys, but just sticking to this snake draft thing at launch because, again, it is early July, and we want to roll these things out and make sure they're good to go before doing too much with it. But yeah, that's a big one that's on the way, and the live syncs are coming as well later on, like I mentioned at the beginning, to be able to have the players marked off for you, when you do your draft for the major platforms there.
I love it. All right. Well, that does it for us on this edition and our first edition on Mondays for the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Again, if you are following along on the video aspect of things, or if you are interested in it, there are going to be tutorials on the RotoWire site as well using these things. The mock draft portion of this is free, at least if you're not doing the adjusted part of it. The draft assistant is the part that comes with the subscriber part. And also, it's able to plug and play the drafts that are happening live. So if you are doing one of my favorite sticker drafts out there with your friends and family league, using the draft assistant tool will be able to identify some of the values that are out there for you right now. But the mock draft portion, again, that we've been highlighting today is free if you just have an account. It's easiest to get an account via the app, although you can get an account as well on the desktop portion of RotoWire as well, too. So thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll be back again more every Monday moving forward. It feels like till eternity, talking more fantasy football updates, strategies, more particular, getting your toes wet as we enter fantasy draft season. Thanks, everyone, for listening.